Love it or hate it, generative AI is here and it's changing how so many of us do things. Education isn't safe in this revolution, as there have been many stories and debates about the use of AI in everything from exams to essays. Personal statements have been a particularly grey area in this conversation, as there doesn't seem to be a definitive stance for or against using AI tools in the writing process. In this video, we're going to dig a bit deeper into the debate to determine if AI can ethically be used in personal statement writing, or if it should be avoided altogether. If you aren't already aware, generative AI tools are typically large language models that pull from large datasets in order to create responses to user prompts. This could be anything from answering questions to creating lists and, yes, writing text. There are plenty of videos explaining the technical processes behind these tools, but what we need to consider for this topic is that generative AI pulls from pre-existing content to create something new, as per the requirements outlined in the prompt. Given the speed of its development and the often non-consensual nature of the data collection, these tools have created heaps of controversy and debate surrounding the ethics and legality of their usage. This controversy is further heightened when you also consider these tools are capable of generating images, audio, and video. But these aspects aren't particularly relevant to personal statements. A standard AI chatbot can quickly generate a piece of text that resembles a personal statement, but what are the rules and restrictions for doing this? To understand, we'll have to turn to UCAS, which handles all personal statement submissions in the UK. UCAS itself doesn't really encourage the use of generative AI tools in the personal statement writing process, but it's not outright banned either. For years, UCAS has required applicants to declare their work is original, meaning it's written by them, and not copied from another source. Plagiarism has always been an issue in academia, with personal statements being no different, so systems have long been in place to detect plagiarized content. While AI writing is technically a different case, the general principle still stands. An applicant's personal statement must be written by themselves. AI writing would be considered copied from another source and thus not allowed to be submitted. However, UCAS has published its own guide to using AI in your personal statement. This guide is primarily skeptical of the potential of using AI in the field and encourages readers to do the work by themselves when writing. But UCAS's stance is not an outright ban on the tools, and this guide even goes so far as to provide tips for safe and effective use of AI during the process. To quote the guide, you could use ChatGPT as a tool to help inspire, clarify, or articulate your own ideas. This is followed by 3 ways that AI could be beneficial to applicants, including brainstorming ideas, structuring the text, and checking readability. While not a full endorsement, UCAS has clearly accepted Gen AI as a part of everyday life for applicants and students. Meanwhile, representatives from some universities have pondered the benefits of these tools for students and applicants, such as Elliot Newstead from the University of Leicester, who states, "We think AI and tools like ChatGPT can potentially be beneficial for students applying for university, if used in the correct way." It's a vague statement, but it's clearly supportive of the tools when used in the correct way. But is there actually a correct way to implement these tools in your work? Let's first consider 3 questions that are commonly asked when discussing personal statements in AI. Is using AI in personal statements cheating? This is a question posed within the official UCAS article, but it doesn't have a definitive answer. Opinions differ, with some concerned about the power and eventual dependence on the tools, while others see it as a natural progression that cannot be stopped. Those who use AI in any capacity when writing their statement may likely have an advantage over those who don't. However, it's important to consider that AI is widely available to the point that almost anyone writing a personal statement could utilize it if they wish. Therefore, the advantage couldn't really be considered unfair, as the vast majority of applicants could choose to use it themselves. Is using AI in personal statements immoral? Another argument against AI usage is that it's immoral and it takes away from the integrity of one's work. It's certainly true that generating major portions of your work with AI is bad practice and will generally result in a lower quality and less personal output. But is this the case for all usage of AI? We've already seen that some within the education industry believe there is a right way to use AI, though there's currently no clear divide between the correct and incorrect usage of AI. It's all open to interpretation, so one's personal use of the tools may be considered too far by some and reasonable by others. But at the end of the day, now that the technology has been made available, applicants are going to use it either way in order to stay competitive. Until the rules catch up to the technology, it's not easy to say what should be considered fair use. Lastly, are AI personal statements plagiarized? While it may seem that AI tools are creating brand new content from scratch, it's important to understand that the databases that power these tools learn from millions of pre-existing sources. By scanning a wide array of content, the technology is able to rearrange and seemingly create a new piece of content based on what it's learned. However, this content always runs the risk of featuring plagiarized work that has not been altered enough to avoid detection. Unlike typical plagiarism, in which the culprit will know exactly where their work has been copied from, it can be difficult to know the original source for an AI-generated piece of work without running it through a plagiarism checker. Even then, the programs that are available publicly are generally less powerful than those used by UCAS and other organizations. Beyond plagiarism, programs have also been introduced to detect AI-generated content specifically. All of this is to say that if you do choose to use AI at any point in your personal statement writing process, it's always safe to alter any output you receive in order to avoid detection. So we've discussed a lot about the ethics and legality of the tools, but are they even any good at writing personal statements? We asked a chatbot to generate a personal statement for Oxford Economics and Management for us, which we then showed to several tutors. Being successful Oxford and Cambridge applicants, they know what makes a good personal statement, but their feedback wasn't exactly glowing. Issues highlighted include the underutilized character count, multiple university-specific references, Americanized spelling, and an overall generic tone of voice. As well as this, it struggled to write fully relevant answers for questions 2 and 3, repeating topics in both. This statement was entirely unedited, so some of these issues could have been fixed with additional work, but it's clear that relying on AI for the bulk of your writing is going to result in an inferior statement that most admissions tutors are likely going to gloss over. Here at Uni Admissions, we wouldn't recommend using AI when writing your personal statement. There is no part of the process that cannot be done by yourself, as millions of students have already written high-quality statements prior to the introduction of generative AI. However, we do also recognise that there are some cases where it could be appropriate or beneficial for applicants to use it. Before we get into those though, we should consider the use cases which should never be used by applicants. Firstly, getting it to write significant chunks of your statement is obviously not a good idea. It not only removes any of your own personality and experience from the text, but it also puts you at risk of being caught for plagiarism or AI-generated content, both of which could result in your application being suspended. The same also goes for rewording existing personal statements with AI. Some students choose to publish their personal statements to help inspire others, but AI tools can now take this work and rephrase the entire thing to make it appear unique. This is still plagiarism and will likely cause you problems down the line, so it's best to keep the examples for inspiration only. And thirdly, AI should never be used to generate ideas for false experiences or talking points. Even if you end up writing the content yourself, asking AI to provide talking points that will seem impressive is exactly the same as coming up with the lie yourself. If you're caught including false information in your statement, your application will also likely be tossed. So we know how to not use AI, but here are some ways where it could be used a bit more responsibly and within UCAS's existing rules. We already saw that UCAS recommends using generative AI to structure your work, which is definitely a viable idea. As an example, you may have a bunch of talking points you want to include. Too many to fit in the character count. It may be beneficial to ask a chatbot which of these points would be the most impactful and in what order they could be discussed. Once you've actually written your statement, there are also some ways that AI tools could help tighten up the text. As we've already discussed, personal statements need to be well written to stand out and grab the attention of the admissions tutors. Regardless of the quality of the actual content, a boring, clunky, or generally poorly written statement is going to impact your chances of being considered for an offer. These creative writing skills and techniques can take months or years to learn and perfect, especially for applicants whose first language is not English. When so many courses have no need for these skills after the personal statement is written, sometimes it can be easier just to tidy up your writing with the help of an AI writing tool once you've crafted the overall structure. What is and isn't compelling to read is still subjective and requires a human element, so you shouldn't assume the output is perfect and copy it straight into your statement. However, it can save time or simply provide inspiration for you to write something even better. Lastly, you may find that your statement exceeds the character limit. It can be hard to manually shorten text without cutting out major sections, but AI chatbots are able to take a piece of work and condense it down into a requested character or word count, usually without losing any of the actual content. It wouldn't be a good idea to run the whole statement through to do this, as it may diminish the quality of the final product. But finding sentences that run a bit too long and asking the tool to shorten them is a quick and easy way to save characters and get your work under the limit. Remember that this should all be done in moderation and only when absolutely essential. As things currently stand, AI technology has advanced incredibly quickly and will likely become an everyday part of our lives, if it hasn't already. However, there is still a lot of progress to be made, so it's likely that in a few years' time, AI usage in personal statements will look very different from how things are now. These programs are constantly learning new information by crawling the internet. As these programs learn more, they will become better and better at replicating human language and accurately answering very specific prompts. As this technology advances, it may become harder for organisations like UCAS to keep up with regulating and detecting AI work. But this doesn't mean that you should give up and rely on these tools. They can be helpful, but your own creativity and understanding of your experiences cannot be matched. So it's essential that you make the most of what you can personally bring to your personal statement. Of course, there are many more ways to support yourself during the personal statement writing process other than AI. We'd recommend starting at our personal statement hub at uniadmissions.co.uk, which you'll find linked in the description. On this page, you'll find guides covering the most important parts of the personal statement process, as well as over 25 personal statement examples from successful Oxbridge applicants, all available to read and get inspired by. If you're applying to Oxford or Cambridge, you could also download the Big Book of Oxbridge applications for free right now. This book features over 500 pages of expert advice for your application, including personal statements, admissions tests, and interviews. It's completely free to download, so check it out in the link below. Thanks for watching, and we wish you the best of luck with your personal statement.